In this video, I'll go over how I built an AI agent that can track and analyze US politician trades. This way you can copy insider traders like Nancy Pelosi for a winning stock market strategy. Now diving in, this is how our agent works. So we can click start on Telegram to trigger the workflow. And once it finishes up, we get a report on all the politician trades that occurred within the last 24 hours. So starting off, we can see that Vicente Gonzalez sold Tesla. Now this section here is important. It said that they made this trade on March 17th, 2025. But it was published today, so that means that they disclosed this after 14 days. So the way politician trades work is that they aren't required to tell you when they make the trade immediately. They have a 45-day grace period before telling the public. So the way I tried to fix this in the agent is that I first took the reported trade price. So this means that Vicente Gonzalez sold their Tesla at 238, and then I'm taking the current price of Tesla, which is 274. Then the agent helps us calculate a price discrepancy. We can see that the price discrepancy is 15%. And then based on this price discrepancy, the agent will then recommend for us to do something. So based on this, Vicente Gonzalez actually made a bad trade since they sold significantly lower than what the current price is now. So the recommendation here is to actually avoid selling and not follow Vicente Gonzalez since the price has increased substantially in the past 14 days. So now scrolling down to see an example of a buy, we have Dave McCormick that bought the Bitcoin ETF on March 20th, 2025. Now the trade was only filed after 9 days, meaning that it's a fairly recent trade that just happened. So we can see that Dave McCormick bought the Bitcoin ETF at 45.81 and the current price is only 46.275. This means that the current price is only 1% higher than his reported buy price, and that's why the agent is recommending for us to consider buying this ETF. They're saying that the price is only slightly increased from the reported buy date, and that buying now would be only slightly higher than the politician's entry price. So in a nutshell, what we're doing is first taking all the public politician trade data, and from there we can get their entry price on either buying or selling a stock, and then we're taking the current price of that given stock. And based on the discrepancy, the agent will then use its intelligence to let us know whether we should buy, sell, or avoid the stock completely. This way, even though we have a 45-day delay at most on politician trades, we're using AI to fill in the gaps for us so that we can still copy politicians without it being too late for us. Now, if you want to receive this politician trading template or any in-depth guides on building AI agents to make money for either yourself or for businesses, then make sure to check out my school community inside the description. Now let's go over how I built this agent at a high level using n8n, which if you're unfamiliar with is a no-code workflow builder. So starting off, we have our two triggers that begin the workflow. So either of these could start this whole entire process. Now the first trigger I have here is a schedule trigger. So this just runs this entire workflow once a day. And this makes sure that we can get all the politician trades daily. But if you do want an option to just message a Telegram bot to manually start this workflow, I've also added in this Telegram trigger like the one you saw in the beginning of the video. Now the first step after the trigger is to scrape a website to get the public politician trade data. So the website we're using to get the politician trades is capitaltrades.com. And this is just a very simple GET request to get all the data from the website. And just to show you, this is what the Capital Trades site looks like. So we have a table with all the recent politician trades. We have Vicente Gonzalez selling Tesla, as we saw in the beginning of the video. And then scrolling down, we also have S&P Global and the Bitcoin ETF. We can see other politicians. We have Steve Cohen for US Treasury bills, Daniel S. for S&P Global, and then a ton of Dave McCormick trades. So all we're doing in this first node is getting all of the data on the page. And then in the second node after this, we're going to reformat this data into Markdown. This way, we can actually pass over this data to an LLM to have them organize all the information for us. So taking all the raw Markdown data, we're going to use an OpenAI message model. So coming in here, we can see that the prompt is that you're a Markdown specialist. And what we want to do is analyze the text provided, which again is all the data from the website, and provide an output in JSON so that we can use later for the data, including only the data points politician, traded issuer, published, traded, filed after, size, owner, and price. And then I just added in one final data point, which is the stock ticker or symbol. So this way we can use it in the API in the following requests. And then finally, we're removing all trades that aren't actually stocks. So all we're doing is just filtering out all these trades to only be publicly traded equities so that we can actually buy them on a stock exchange. And then from here, we get a nicely formatted output as we can see on the right-hand side. Now, the next step here is to reference all of the stock tickers here. So we can see we have Tesla, S&P Global, Goldman Sachs, and the Bitcoin ETF. So from there, we're taking out all the stock tickers, and then we're referencing the financial modeling prep API to get all of the stock prices. So on the right-hand side, we can see we have stock prices today for Tesla, S&P Global, Goldman Sachs, and then the Bitcoin index fund. And then once we have all those data points, we're combining them again into one single JSON output which we can feed to the final AI agent. And then this is where they're going to take in all this data and provide an analysis for us. So to really make this workflow as clear as possible, I've reformatted this to show you how this works step by step. So to start off, we have two separate triggers. Either one could work. We're first going to the Capital Trades website, taking all the data from the website, converting it into a format that the AI model can read, and then giving it to the AI model. Then from there, the AI model will extract the table that we saw here into an easy to read kind of like format. And then within that format, we're first taking the stock tickers out, getting the current stock prices for those tickers, combining them into one single output, and then merging those with the original table. So this way we have the original table of politician trades combined with the current stock prices of those tickers. And then finally, we convert it once again into one final output, giving it to an AI agent, which will then analyze all the trades for us. Now let's go into this with a little bit more depth and build it from scratch. So like I mentioned, we can have two separate triggers. The first is on a schedule and the second one is for Telegram. So for the first schedule trigger, all you have to do is type in schedule as the very first step inside your workflow. And you can set what you want the trigger to be. So it could be every day, for example, like we have here. It can also be every 2 days, every week, every month. But obviously, if you want to get up-to-date information on politician trades, I would recommend every day at the least, just so you can cover all your bases in terms of when new trades occur. Now, like I mentioned, you can also have a manual way to start the workflow. Just simply click add, and then you just want to add another trigger. And this time we can use Telegram. So you want to do select Telegram and then on message. And if you've never connected Telegram before to n8n, all you have to do is click create new credential and then follow the steps inside the documentation here. But basically all you have to do is message a bot and get your own access token from your Telegram account. Super simple. So now that we have our two triggers, let's go ahead and create the first step in our workflow, which is to get all the data from our politician site. What we want to do is scrap all the data from this table inside capitaltrades.com. And the way we would do this is with a simple GET request. Now we're using a GET request because this page isn't too complex. We don't need to get dynamic data from this website. It's a table here. And all we want is the contents of the table. Go into n8n and then create the very first step inside your workflow. Select HTTP request. Now this is the simplest way to scrap a website, and I'll show you what the outputs are. Select get, since we want to get all the data from a site. And for the URL, just go ahead and select the URL here, capitaltrades.com/trades. So heading back here, paste this in, and we don't need to do anything else. So all you want to do is click test step, and we can see that this get request just returns all of the contents on the page. Now this is a little bit harder to read because this is the HTML of the page, which you can think of as kind of like the skeleton and structure. So we can see all of the links on the pages, all the contents, the styling, basically everything that makes this website. So everything we see here on our page. Now, obviously, this is helpful for getting all of the contents for the entire web page, but all we want to do is grab this main table here. We don't need anything else. And we also want to format this so that an LLM or AI model can't actually read this page. Because right now, if we pass this over to an AI model, this is going to be way too dense and complex for them to reasonably manage and understand what it is we're trying to say here. Let's first reformat this data into something that an AI model can understand. So the way we would do this is go ahead and change all of this HTML formatted data into Markdown instead. So in our next step of our workflow, let's go ahead and add Markdown. And this converts data between either Markdown and HTML or vice versa in our case. So HTML to Markdown. Let's go ahead and paste over our data here, test this step. So we can see that our input, before we mark anything down, it just says doc type. It has all the HTML code, which again is kind of like the skeleton of the page. And now this makes it a bit easier to understand. We have the actual text that's on the page rather than a lot of the styling as well as structure of the HTML skeleton. And then scrolling down, we have the actual contents of the table here. So we can see all of the trade details for every single name. We have like Dave McCormick, which we saw at the beginning of the video. We have his Bitcoin ETF purchase here. So now that we have our Markdown output, this is something that AI models can actually understand. So in our next step here, we can go directly to message an AI model. I like using OpenAI because their 4.0 mini is cheap and it's pretty easy for basic tasks like this. We're just extracting the data for the table. So over here, I'll just search up OpenAI, and what we can do is message a model. And again, this isn't too complex of a task, so 4.0 mini should work just fine. All we want to do is go ahead and take this entire markdown of the page and just extract this table here into JSON format so that we can use it in other steps of our workflow. We're using minimal analysis on this step. And then for the prompt, let's go ahead and click expression and open this up because we want to reference this markdown data that we did in the previous step. So feel free to copy this prompt as I have exactly. I'll explain why I included every single one of these sentences. So first, you're a markdown specialist because again, we're giving them markdown data to start with. And then we want them to analyze the text and provide an output in JSON format for the data in the table. So again, all we want is the data inside this table. And the reason why we want to use JSON is because it'll be easier to reference this data in other steps of our workflow. So if we head back here, these are all of the columns we want. We want the politician because we want to know who actually made the trade in case you're interested. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi is a big name, but these are all just members of Congress or the House. Next, we'll want the traded issuer because this is the stock or company or investment that they made. So we can see this includes things like Tesla, US Treasury bills, S&P Global. And next, we want the published date. And this was when the trade was disclosed publicly. So we can see that this was disclosed today at 6:05, today at 6:05, today at 6:05. These were all yesterday. And what's even more important than the published date or the date that it was made public was the date that they actually made the trade. So this is what this traded date is. So even though Dave McCormick published the trade on the 30th of March, he made the trade on the 16th of March. So we can see that it was filled after 12 days. Then we'd obviously want to know the type. So either buy or sell. And then finally, we want the price that they bought that asset for. So now heading back into n8n, we can see that these are all the fields that we want. And then we want to add one final data point called symbol. So this is the ticker for the traded issuer. So if you go ahead and head back to the website, we can see that there's a ticker on the bottom here. So we want them to add the ticker for the traded issuer. And then we don't want them to add US to the ticker. So you can see that all these tickers have Tesla, $US, SPGI $US. So what we want to do is only have the ticker because that's the format we need for the next step in getting the current stock prices. And then finally, we want to remove all trade rows without a symbol. So the reason for this is we want to remove all of the trades that have NA as a traded issuer. And that's because we can't physically buy this on a stock exchange. So we can't buy US Treasury bills, at least to my knowledge. We can't invest into the Bethlehem Area School District, Central Dauphin School District, Delaware Riverport, unless I'm completely missing something and you can't actually buy these on the open market. But I just filtered these out because they don't actually have a stock ticker. So I wouldn't know where to get the current price of these assets. And then finally, with these models, you have to be as clear as possible. We don't want them to remove duplicates. And that's because some of these politicians can buy or sell the same exact asset multiple times in a row. Maybe I can give you an example with Dave McCormick. Seems he's been very busy in his trades. He bought Bitcoin's ETF 4 separate times. So obviously this happened a while ago, but if we wanted to represent this, we would have to make sure that they don't filter this out just because it's duplicated. We want them to note that they actually bought it 4 times. So that's why we don't want to remove any duplicates here. And then to round this out, we want to actually provide the data so that the AI model can see our markdown. So all we have to do is just drag over that markdown data into our page here. This is the result. We have all of the capital trades. So now exiting out of here, lastly, what we want to do is make sure that output content as JSON is checked. Now we said to output this in JSON format inside our prompt right here, provide an output in JSON format, but we want to force the model to output the contents as JSON. So make sure to check this. And then now if we test the step, let's go ahead and wait for 4.0 mini to work its magic. And awesome. As we can see, we have our formatted table in JSON format. So we can see Vicente Gonzalez, Tesla Inc., which he sold for a terrible trade 14 days later. Scrolling down, we have Daniel S. Goodman, S&P Global, Dave McCormick, Goldman Sachs, Dave McCormick, Bitwise, Bitcoin ETF. We have 4 from the main page of our trades. So heading back into the website, we have first Vicente. We don't have Steve Cohen because we're not filtering for US Treasury bills. We can buy these on, I believe, like the government site, but not through a stock exchange. So that's why we don't have these. Again, we have S&P Global here. So this is our second one. Below this, we have the Goldman Sachs group, which we can invest in. That's why this is also showing up. And then Bitwise Bitcoin ETF. We have 4 trades with actual symbols or tickers: Tesla, SPGI, Goldman Sachs or GS, and then BitB, Bitcoin, Bitwise ETF. And these are the 4 that are being shown. So Tesla, S&P, Goldman Sachs, and Bitwise Bitcoin. So now looking at this output, we can pass this directly to the actual AI agent node to analyze. So these just include a JSON output of all 4 of the politician trades. But what we want to do is kind of like a sub workflow or something on the side is that we want to take the current stock prices for these tickers. So Tesla, SPGI, Goldman Sachs, and Bitwise, and we want to get the current prices. So thinking of it this way, this data is completely fine to pass over into our next step, but we want to do a side step. So let's go ahead and add another node here, and we want this to be a code node. So heading back into this OpenAI message model, this is the output, and all we want to do is extract the symbol here. So all we want to do is hypothetically get Tesla, SPGI, GS, and BitB. And the way we would do this is first reference this output. So from here, let's connect this to the code node. And then inside the code node, we can physically extract only the stock tickers. So go ahead and delete this. And then you can copy and paste my JavaScript code that I have here or have ChatGPT generate some code for you. This is very simple code. All we're doing is literally 5 different lines of code. This gray line here are just notes telling you what this line of code does. So the first thing is extract the trades array from the node output. So all we want to do in this first step is extract trades here. That's our very first step of the code. Next, we want to get symbols. So we're mapping through trades to get an array of ticker symbols. So heading back into our output here, all we want to do is physically take out the symbols from each trade. So Tesla, SPGI, GS, and BitB. So that's our second line of the code. The third line of the code is to remove duplicates. People like Dave McCormick are very active inside traders. So they constantly buy the same asset multiple times, like with this BitB Bitcoin ETF. So even though inside n8n, we would have duplicates on this section here. Now we don't have any duplicates because it didn't happen today or yesterday. But if we did have duplicates, it would show like Bitwise, Bitcoin ETF, and then the same exact thing again. What we want to do is only show that ticker once rather than twice. So we're removing the duplicates here. And then next we want to join all the tickers into a comma separated string. So that means we're going to have all the tickers in one line. So Goldman Sachs, comma, BitB, comma, or whatever the other 2 tickers were that I forgot. And this just makes it so the output is neat for us to use in the next step. And then it just returns the result as a JSON object. So if we test this step here, this is what it'll look like. All it's doing is taking out the tickers. So all we have is Tesla, SPGI, GS, and BitB. So again, you can copy my code here exactly, or you can just have ChatGPT generate this for you. This is super simple JavaScript code, and basically any model can do this for you. So now that we have the tickers from the previous step, all we want to do is get the current price. So current price of Tesla, SPGI, GS, and BitB. So as our next step here, let's add in another HTTP request. And then in this section here, we'll use the financial modeling prep API, which is completely free. So all you want to do is head over into financialmodelingprep.com, sign up for a free account. And from there, you can get your free API key, which we'll use inside our workflow. And this just grabs the current stock prices for any ticker that you send a request to. And the reason why we're using FMP here rather than something like TradingView or another one like I believe Alpha Vantage is that we're going to be doing multiple tickers in a row. In this code node output, we have 4 tickers separated by commas. And I believe that this is one of the only APIs that allows you to do all of this in one line rather than having 4 separate HTTP requests, so like one for Tesla, one for SPGI, one for GS, one for BitB. By using financial modeling prep, we're able to do all 4 of those at once. So all you want to do is head over into this HTTP request and then paste in this URL exactly as I have here. I'll make this a bit larger so you can see. We have financialmodelingprep.com/API/v3/quote, and then this is where we'll input the ticker. So right now it's Apple because it's a default example endpoint. But what we want to do is change this to be dynamic based on our previous step. And then for the API key, like I mentioned, head over to the website and get your own. And then delete Apple here. But what you want to do is bring in the tickers. So just drag this in here. And we can see this is what the HTTP request says. Same exact thing, but now we have Tesla, SPGI, GS, BitB, all separated by commas. And then now, lastly, all you need to do is input your API key. And I'll replace my key after this goes live, but now just to test this step, we can see that we have now 4 separate items. So we have the current stock price for Tesla. Right now it's 268. We then have the current stock price for the S&P Global, Goldman Sachs, and BitB. And honestly, we have more data than that. We also have the day changes, day high, day lows, current market cap, volume, etc. But all we really care about is the price. Again, if you want to incorporate other aspects into your analysis, then feel free to use any of these data points because again, we do have all these at our disposal. But now heading out of here, we have all of our current stock prices for the politician trades. And we can see that it provides us with 4 items. All we want to do is conjoin these items or aggregate them into one single item because the goal of our n8n workflow is that at the end, when we put everything through an AI agent, we want to make sure that the AI agent only has one item coming into it so that it can read all your data all at once. So first, what you want to do is just go ahead and aggregate this into one item. And then for aggregate, select all item into a single list. Test step. We go from 4 items here to 1 item here. Again, nothing's changed. It's just all 4 items into one item. And then like I mentioned, this section here is only for the current stock prices. We still want the table that was generated here. So let me just add in some sticky notes to make this a bit more clear. So this workflow or sub workflow, I guess, if you want to call it that, is just getting the current stock prices. But we still want to incorporate the table that we have from this previous node here as well. So what we want to do is merge this OpenAI message model output with our current stock prices. So the way to do this is to add another step. So we can drag this out and type in merge. And we just have 2 separate inputs. So we can keep this to append to number of inputs. So this is our input number 1, and this will be our input number 2. So now testing this step, let's go ahead and see how our output now looks. So now that we have 2 total items, the first item is from our OpenAI message model, which has all of the politician trades inside one JSON output. So we can see that first we have Vicente Gonzalez, Daniel Goodman, Dave McCormick. And then below this, we have our second item, which is the current stock prices. So Tesla, SPGI, GS, and BitB. So all we're doing is conjoining the politician trades with the current stock prices. Then now that we have 2 items, like I mentioned, we want to make sure we only have one final item for the AI agent. So once again, we'll use the same exact aggregate node, type in aggregate. And then for the aggregation, we'll select all item data into a single list. Let's go ahead and test this step. And we go from 2 items into 1 item. So we have the data. First is all of the politician trades, and then below this is all of the current stock prices. Here, we're finally ready to feed this data to an AI agent model to give us an analysis. So let's go ahead and add one final step, AI agent. And this is going to be our main kind of like hub for the analysis. So first, what we want to do is select define below since we want to create our own prompt. And let's click expression here, open this up because we're going to be referencing a lot of these JSON data points. So here you can copy my prompt exactly or form your own if you want to focus on more separate data points. But what I've written here is that you're provided with 2 sets of JSON data. So the first is all the politician trades, while the second is the current prices. And then what I did was just drag over the data points. So the first data point to drag over is this trade section here. So all I did was drag over trades. But what you want to do after dragging over trades is to actually stringify this line. So let me just enter this and show you. If we just drag it over directly, we can see that it says object, object, object. It can't actually stringify the text and read it to the AI agent. So that's why I added this JSON stringify in the beginning. So if we were to do this, copy and paste it here, and then reformat this to JSON stringify, we can see that it actually shows all the politician trades now. And stick with this. I've written that this contains a list of recent trades by politicians. So includes the name, traded issuer and symbol, reported trade price, trade type, publication time, trade date, time elapsed, size, and other details. And then below this, we want to provide the second data point, which is all of the current prices. So if we collapse this on the left-hand side, we can see that all the current prices are inside this data 1 data point. So we have Tesla, SPGI, etc. So all you want to do is drag this over like I did here, but then just input this JSON.stringify in front. So it no longer says object here, but rather the actual outputs of the content. And then we can say that for each traded symbol, this provides the current market price along with other market details. And then the task to the agent is to analyze each politician trade by matching the symbol to the corresponding live market data. This will essentially conjoin the 2 separate data fields that we have into one final output so that we have the politician trades as well as the current prices of those trades. And then from here, we just want a summary that includes the politician name, symbols, trade type, trade date, and time elapsed, reported trade price, current market price, discrepancy, and then importantly, we want the recommendation based on the time elapsed between the trade and the trade price, as well as the price discrepancies between the 2. So this is where the intelligence comes in to tell us if we should still take the trade or not, because again, these are on a 45-day delay at the most. If the trade's reported price is missing, we'll do NA, and then we want to output the analysis as a clear, concise report. And then following all of this, we need to add a chat model. Now for the chat model, this is going to be kind of an analysis intensive task. So I wouldn't recommend something like 4.0 mini. I would do a more smarter model, something within Anthropic's Claude lineup. You can also use DeepSeek, but I think it's a bit too slow for this workflow. But I like using Google Gemini because first, 2.5 Pro is the smartest model on the market currently. And again, it's completely free, so why not? But if you do want to use OpenAI, I wouldn't use 4.0 mini. I'd use O1, maybe O3 mini, but those are a bit more expensive. So I'll do Google Gemini here. And then for the models, just scroll down. You can do either 2.0 Flash or 2.5 Pro. So now let's go ahead and test the step here. And as we can see, we get the HTML formatted output that has the trade analysis report. So we have the politician name, all of the fields that we wanted, the recommendation to either buy or not buy. And we have this 4 times for all of the 4 separate trades. And then as a final step, all we want to do is output the contents from this AI agent back into Telegram, or we can use any other thing. Like if you want daily emails or WhatsApp, you can also use that as a final step. But for us here, we'll just do Telegram since I like using Telegram. And then for Telegram, we'll just do send a text message. Now we didn't really use Telegram in the beginning. We added in the trigger here, but we haven't connected it. So let me connect this. And if we scroll back here, we can first set the output of the text to be what we just got in the previous node. And if we scrolled all the way down, we don't have the Telegram chat ID yet because we haven't messaged Telegram in the very first trigger to get all of these data points. But if you're doing this on your own, then first message Telegram as a trigger rather than just using the schedule or the manual set. And then from there, you can just drag in the chat ID from Telegram. But for now, I'll just do 1 for a placeholder. And this concludes our AI agent to copy insider traders within the US government. It's always been unfair that politicians do have insider advantages, particularly within the public stock markets. So we should use all the data that we have at our disposal, even if it's 45 days late. And with the power of AI, we're able to fill in the gaps to really give us an edge within the market. And this way we can hope to be on the same level as people like Nancy Pelosi in the future. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content around building AI agents for any type of use case. I cover things ranging from crypto to using AI agents in your own businesses. And like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you do want a more exclusive community on how I personally build AI agents, not only for my trading strategies, but also for local businesses, then make sure to check out my school community where I'll have a bunch of templates, including this one that you just saw, for use and where you can learn how to build agents that actually make money.